Alrighty guys, this is Module 40, studying genetic and environmental influences on intelligence. Okay, so what do twin and adoption studies on intelligence tell us? Well, first of all, the estimates of heritability of intelligence range from about 50 to 80%. If we recall what heritability means, is that the amount of variation that we can account with genes from, let me re-say this. Basically, we can say that 50 to 80% of the variability in IQ scores is due to genes. And twin studies can kind of confirm this. So, identical twins taking an IQ test basically score as similar as the same person taking it twice. Also, oftentimes, identical twins will have the same gifts. So, if they're high in verbal ability, usually both of them will be high in verbal ability. Also, fraternal twins tend to have greater variability between the two of them in their IQ scores. They have also found that identical twins have similar gray and white matter in the brain, and that these areas are typically the same in how they process spatial and verbal abilities. So there is some evidence that genes play a role in our intelligence. However, intelligence isn't one single gene. It's what we call polygenetic, meaning that the things that we are measuring as intelligence are composed of many genes. Now, when environments vary widely, the environmental differences are more predictive of IQ scores than genetics. So, for example, if one child is, in an impoverished home that isn't getting proper nutrition, so on and so forth, they're going to have more of their IQ due to that environment than their genes. So there are both genetic and environmental factors, but intelligence does have more heritability as one ages. So what they found, for example, is that when adopted children are adopted into wealthy homes, they find that there is an increase in IQ scores often. But what happens is that later on in life, they actually tend to score more similarly to their bio parents than to their adoptive parents. So there does suggest some heritability there. And then let's talk about the environmental influences. So first of all, if a child is neglected, their intelligence scores are severely affected earlier in their childhood. So there were studies of these babies in this Iranian orphanage, and unfortunately, the caretakers there were not educated on how to care for children, and these babies were showing serious cognitive delays. Most of them couldn't talk, or most of them couldn't walk by age 2 and were not very verbal by age 4. So poor environmental conditions can depress or slow cognitive development. So if we're talking poor nutrition, poor healthcare, if the child isn't getting socialization or being spoken to regularly, this can all depress cognitive development. Also, poverty-related stresses can impede cognitive performance. So if a child grows up in an environment in which they're experiencing lots of stress due to maybe lack of access to stable food, stable housing, stable healthcare, so on and so forth, this can affect cognitive performance. Because if you think about it, your resources of processing power are being allocated elsewhere if you have stressors that are causing you to be focused on that rather than, verbal ability and so on and so forth. Now, extreme conditions such as a child being sensory deprived, being isolated, and poverty, these are all things that can slow normal brain development. Now, you've all seen things like Baby Einstein or these programs that suggest that they can help your kid be smarter. But unfortunately, the data just doesn't show that that's really true, that you enriching an environment more than just like a normal household doesn't actually boost scores or anything like that. We do find, though, that Intervention can help. So schooling and intelligence can interact, and both can enhance later income. So, for example, when they get kids into preschool, and they have really structured preschool programs that promote, verbal ability, socialization, kids jump in points. So, for example, across a number of experiments, intelligence scores have risen with nutritional supplements given to pregnant mothers and newborns. So the points have gone up 3.5 points, with quality preschool experiences and with interactive reading programs. So these are all things that can change our intelligence. Now, interestingly, motivation is often a better predictor of success, though, than our IQ scores alone. So this researcher, Carol Dweck, she's kind of the person that coined the term growth mindset. And then she basically said that we have the ability to change or modify our intelligence and that it can grow as we learn. And basically, what she has found is that when people believe, when they have the motivation and they believe that they have the ability to get better at something, they often do. So that belief can be helpful in helping one to grow into what they want to become. And these are the test yourself questions, and I'll see you